John lived alone in a small wooden cabin deep inside the forest. He liked it that way. No noise, no neighbors, and no trouble. After years of war and pain, all he wanted was peace. That night, the wind howled outside. The trees creaked. Snow had started falling around midnight. The world was quiet, until a knock came at 3 a.m. John opened his eyes slowly. His hand moved toward the old pistol under his bed. He sat up, heart alert. Knock, knock. It wasn't loud, but it was real. No one should be here. Not this far, not this late. He grabbed his flashlight, pulled on a jacket, and walked to the door. Slowly he opened it, just enough to peek through, and there she stood, a tall, thin woman, not quite human. Her skin was a pale silver. Her eyes large and glowing faint blue. In her arms, a child, maybe 5 years old, wrapped in a torn cloth. Both were shivering. For a moment, John said nothing. His mouth was dry. Was he dreaming? Then the woman spoke, voice soft and shaking. "If I warm your bed, will you let us stay?" John blinked. "What? I don't mean harm," she said. "Just a place for one night." John looked at her, the desperation in her eyes, the way the child clung to her. He hesitated. His instincts screamed no, but something else, something deep inside, told him not to shut the door. He opened it wider. "Come in, quick." She nodded once and stepped inside. The child said nothing but looked around the cabin with wide, scared eyes. John shut the door fast. The cold air followed them in, but the fire in the fireplace was still burning. He guided. "Then closer. Sit," he said. "You need heat." The woman crouched near the fire, her arms wrapped around the child. John handed them a blanket from his couch. She took it, eyes full of quiet gratitude. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at him for a second, then down at her child. "Ilari." "And the kid?" "Lena." John nodded. "I'm John." There was silence for a while, just the crackling of the fire and the wind outside. John made tea, poured some into 2 cups, and placed them on the table. Ilari stood slowly, her movements soft and careful. She took 1 cup and gave the other to her daughter. John watched. Their hands looked almost human. Almost, their skin shimmered when the firelight hit it. He couldn't stop staring. "You're not from around here," he finally said. "No," Ilari answered, her voice flat. "Not from this world." John's fingers tightened around his cup. "Alien?" "Yes." The word hung in the air like smoke. John didn't say anything. He just stared at the woman and her child sitting in his cabin like it was the most normal thing. After a minute, he stood and walked toward a small cabinet near his bed. He opened it, just enough to check his gun was still there. It was Ilari saw him. "I won't hurt you," she said. "If I wanted to, I wouldn't have knocked." "Fair point," John said. The child was falling asleep in Ilari's arms now. Her head rested on her mother's shoulder. Her skin was also silver, but lighter, like frost. John exhaled. "Why here?" "Why me?" Ilari looked into the fire. "You were the only house with light." John nodded, of course. His mistake. He always kept the porch light on, out of habit. "They're chasing us," she added, her voice even softer now. "Who?" She didn't answer. John stared at the fire. He didn't know what this was, a test, a trap, or something else entirely. He should have told them to leave. That was the safe thing, but when he looked at that little girl, asleep and warm for the first time in who knows how long, he couldn't say the words. "You can stay tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we'll figure something out." Ilari met his eyes. "Thank you." John nodded. "You can take the couch. I'll keep the fire going." She didn't move right away, just stared at him as if she didn't understand kindness. Then she whispered, "You are not like the others." John didn't ask what that meant. That night he stayed awake, sitting near the fire with a shotgun across his lap. Outside, the forest was silent, but deep in the trees, something watched. Something waiting. John didn't sleep that night. He sat on the old wooden chair near the fireplace, shotgun across his lap, eyes fixed on the couch. Ilari and her child, Lena, were sleeping under a thick blanket. The child's small head rested against her mother's shoulder. A soft humming sound came from their bodies, like a quiet song only the air could hear. John didn't like the sound. It wasn't human, and neither were they, but they looked tired, not dangerous, just broken. As the fire cracked and popped, John thought about leaving, just walking out and disappearing into the forest. Let them deal with whatever they ran from. But then he remembered Lena's tiny hand holding that cup of tea with shaking fingers. She couldn't be more than 5 years old. He couldn't leave them, not yet. The next morning came slowly. The snow had stopped, but the sky was still heavy and gray. Ilari woke first. Her eyes opened suddenly, sharp and alert. She scanned the room quickly until she saw John. He hadn't moved. Still. Watching us? She asked, her voice low. I don't sleep much, he replied. I noticed. Lena stirred in her sleep, turning slightly under the blanket. Ilari gently brushed the girl's hair back, her fingers glowing faintly. John watched that glow. Is that normal for your kind? Yes, Ilari said. We call it rest light. It means safety, calm. Well, John said, glowing doesn't calm me. Ilari gave a soft smile. It didn't last long. She stood up and walked slowly into the small kitchen area. May I help with something? John raised an eyebrow. Help? I want to earn our place, even if it's just for one more day. He didn't answer, but he watched her open a cabinet, pull out a pan, and start preparing something with the eggs and bread she found. It was strange. An alien making breakfast in his kitchen, but it felt normal. Too normal after breakfast. Lena sat on the floor with a few pencils and a notebook John had found in the drawer. She began drawing quietly, circles, stars, long shapes in the sky. John looked over her shoulder. You like to draw spaceships? Lena didn't look up. She just nodded. Were you born out there? He asked softly. Again a nod. Is it scary? This time she looked at him. Her eyes were too wise for a child. And sad? Yes, she whispered. John didn't ask more. Later that afternoon, Ilari stepped outside to gather some wood. She didn't ask for permission. She just went. John followed her, not to stop her, but to watch. She moved carefully, like someone trained to hide. Her eyes were always scanning, listening. You've done this before, John said from behind her. Yes. Running? She paused. Surviving. They carried the wood back in silence. Once inside, John finally asked what had been on his mind. Who's chasing you? Ilari put the wood down. Her hands were shaking slightly. Hunters, she said. Humans? She shook her head. Not like you. They were made to track people like me. Once they find us, they take us. For study, for power, for fear. Why here? We thought Earth was safe. It's not. John stared at her for a long time. And the kid? She's special, Ilari said quickly. That's why they want her. Not me. John's jaw tightened. He didn't like that answer. What makes her special? Ilari looked at her daughter. Then she looked at John. She dreams of light, real light. And when she dreams, things change. John didn't understand, but something in his chest tightened. Something protective? That night after dinner, John brought out some old blankets for them again. Where did you sleep last night? Ilari asked. Didn't you watched us the whole time? Had to. I don't know you. Ilari nodded. Fair. As Lena curled up on the couch, already half asleep, John leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. You can take the bed tonight, he said. Ilari looked surprised. Why? Because the kid shouldn't sleep cold? And the bed's warmer, Ilari hesitated. You trust me now? John looked at her, tired but honest. No, but I trust that little girl, and she trusts you. For the first time, Ilari looked like she might cry. But she did in single quotes, think she simply whispered, Thank you. She picked up her daughter and carried her to the small bedroom. The door closed gently. John sat down by the fire again. He didn't pick up the shotgun this time, but outside, just beyond the edge of the trees, a small black dot blinked under the snow, a tracker. The morning air was sharp. Snow had hardened overnight, making each step outside crunch louder than usual. John stood near the edge of the forest, boots deep in frost, staring at something half buried beneath a tree, a black metal disc. Small, Silent, still blinking red. He didn't touch it. Instead, he crouched, memorized the shape, and returned to the cabin quietly. Inside, the smell of tea filled the air. Ilari was folding blankets. Lena sat at the table, humming a soft tune while drawing, this time, a dark shape chasing a smaller one across stars. John said nothing. He went to the fireplace and stared at the flames. Ilari, he finally said, do you know what a tracker looks like? She froze. Slowly, she turned. Why? There's one outside, near the trees. Her face turned pale, even paler than before. She looked toward Lena, then back at John. How close? 30 feet. Maybe less. Ilari sat down, her hands shaking. They found us, she whispered. John leaned forward. Who are they? Ilari didn't speak. Enough games, John said. His voice was quiet but hard. You want help? Then tell me the truth. Who's chasing? You? And why are they after a child? Lena looked up from her drawing, sensing the tension. Ilari finally spoke, her voice dry like dust. You've heard of the harvesters? John frowned. Some alien rumor. Military talked about them once. Said they abducted small colonies. They're real, Ilari said. And they're not abducting. They're collecting. Collecting? What? Beings, bloodlines, powers, potential, and they don't care who dies to get it. John stared at her. Why you? Because I escaped, she said. I was one of them, a breeder unit. Used to create gifted children for their control. But Lena was different. John's heart sank. You mean you were a prisoner? Yes, for years. But when Lena started showing signs, dreams turning into real visions, objects moving without touch, I knew they'd take her. She's too powerful, too free. He looked at the girl, now silently coloring her stars with soft red pencil strokes. She looked like any normal child, but something in her eyes, the calm, the depth, didn't match her age. Why did you come here? He asked. We followed a signal, Ilari replied. A distress beacon from this region. We thought maybe someone escaped before us. Maybe we'd find others. There are no others, John said. It's just me, Ilari nodded. We know that. Now, that afternoon, John stepped outside again, this time with a shovel. He dug up the tracker and placed it in a metal box. Back inside, he locked it in the basement freezer, far from signal reach. At least for now, he had questions, many, but something told him answers weren't enough anymore. This wasn't just Ilari's problem now. It was his. That evening, as wind scraped against the windows, Lena approached him while he cleaned his tools. Mr. John? She asked. He looked down. Yeah? Do you miss people? The question surprised him. Sometimes, he said. But not much. I see people in my dreams, she said softly. People with no names, but they cry all the time. John paused. Do you think they're real? Lena nodded. They're in big rooms, cold places. They call for their moms. He swallowed hard. Have you always dreamed like that? Only after we ran. He crouched beside her, unsure what to say. Then she whispered, You're not. Like the others, you don't have fire in your eyes, just quiet. John felt something heavy in his chest. He looked away. Go to your mom, he said gently. It's getting late. Later that night, Ilari sat across from him as snow fell. Outside like ashes. I've put you in danger, she said. I could have closed the door. You didn't, he looked at her. Because the kid reminds me of someone? Your daughter? She asked. No, he replied. Someone I couldn't save. Ilari didn't ask more. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out a small crystal-like object. It glowed soft blue in her palm. This is her seed stone, she said. It holds her memory. If we die, give it to someone kind. John stared at the light. We're not dying. They're fast and cruel, and they're already here. Then we stop them, Ilari smiled faintly. You speak like a soldier. I am one, he said. Retired, but some fights. Come to your doorstep anyway. Outside, the forest was silent, but far above the treetops. Something moved. A shadow crossed the moon, too smooth, too silent. Too wrong. They were closer than anyone knew, and time was running out. Asterisk. It started with the silence. not the usual quiet of the forest. This was deeper, heavier, like the world was holding its breath. John noticed it first when the birds didn't return at dawn. No chirping. No rustling in the trees, just the stillness. He stepped outside. Shotgun slung across his back and scanned the tree line. The sky was gray, but something darker moved behind the clouds. Something that didn't belong. Inside the cabin, Ilari was packing quietly. She didn't speak. She didn't ask. She just moved, fast and careful. Lena sat on the edge of the couch, holding her sketchbook. She wasn't drawing. She was staring at the fireplace, still, focused. John came back inside. Unlock the door. They're close, he said. Ilari nodded. They never send ships right away. First, they send one of them. One of what? She looked at him. A seeker. John didn't like that word. What does it do? It doesn't knock. Just after noon, a black car rolled up the snowy path leading to the cabin. John watched it through his scope from the attic window. No engine sound, no tracks behind it. It didn't belong to this world. The driver stepped out slowly. A man or something dressed like one, tall, perfect posture. Long black coat, too clean for the forest. His face was pale, eyes like glass. John aimed the rifle at his chest. The man looked straight at the attic window, like he could see through the wall. Then he smiled. There was a knock at the door. Not loud. Not urgent, just polite. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. John stood by the door, gun in hand. Ilari pulled Lena behind her. I'll talk, John whispered. Don't move. He opened the door slightly, enough to see that glass-eyed man standing calmly on the porch. Can I help you? John asked coldly. The man tilted his head. We are looking for a lost child, he said, voice too smooth. She may be confused, afraid. We can help. John didn't blink. Never seen a kid like that. The man smiled again, wider this time. You're lying, John. Hearing his name sent a chill down John's spine. He kept the barrel of his shotgun hidden behind the doorframe. I think you have the wrong house, he said, and started to close the door. The man's hand moved too fast and stopped the door with 2 fingers. He leaned in slightly. She carries light inside her, and light must be controlled. John's grip tightened. You should leave. A pause, then the man stepped back. Of course, he said politely. We'll return when it's easier to enter. He turned and walked back to the black car. The vehicle didn't drive away. It simply vanished, like smoke in the wind. John shut the door, hard. They know. Ilari said, they knew yesterday, John replied. That night, John prepared. He checked all the old traps he'd set years ago. Landmines, tripwires, sensors, buried under logs. He reinforced the windows, closed the storm shutters, loaded every weapon he had. You can't stop them. Ilari warned gently. I don't need to stop them, he said. I just need to make them bleed. She stared at him. You're not doing this for us. I'm doing it because no one should be hunted like animals. Not here, not anywhere, he turned to Lena. Go with your mom. Stay low. If anything happens to me, run west. There's an old ranger outpost 3 miles out. Keep moving from there. Lena looked up at him. You'll come with us, she said softly. Not a question, a statement. John hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, after I burned some things. Midnight came like a whisper, then came the hum, lull, vibrating the windows. John opened the attic window again and looked out. Dark shapes moved through the trees, tall, thin, bending wrong with every step, eyes glowing red. Not many. Just 3. But they were enough. Ilari held Lena tight in the corner. John set his traps live, outside. One of the shapes stepped on a wire. Boom. Flames burst through the night. The forest lit up in gold and orange. One hunter down, the others didn't. Run. They split, one toward the front, one around back. John fired through the front wall, his shotgun roaring in the quiet. A shadow screamed, glass shattered. Wood cracked. Then silence again. John stepped back, breathing hard. Ilari? He called. No answer. He rushed toward the back room and stopped. The window was open. Snow falling in. Lena was gone. Outside, a red light flickered in the forest. A ship, not large, but silent, hovered low above the trees. Inside it, a small girl stood still, but she wasn't crying. She was glowing, eyes closed, hands lifted. And everything inside that ship began to shake. The forest was on fire. Not from flames, but from light. A strange, pulsing, white gold light that danced between the trees like silent thunder. John stumbled through the snow, rifle tight in his grip, eyes searching the sky. The ship was still. Above, small, silver, smooth, silent, and inside it, floating just inches above the floor, Lena. He saw her through the ship's glass side. Her eyes were closed. Her hair floated around her face like she was underwater. Light poured from her hands. Calm, steady, controlled. John had seen many strange things during war, alien tech, bioweapons, AI nightmares. But this was something else. This was power. Back at the cabin, Ilari was on her knees, hands shaking. They took her, she whispered. John grabbed her arm. She's not gone. She's fighting them. Ilari looked up, stunned. What? She's in the ship. But they're not controlling her. She's doing something to them. Ilari stood, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time. They never expected her to wake up, she said. She wasn't supposed to awaken this young. What's happening to her? She's connecting with the world. With everything. Alive. That doesn't make sense, John said. It's not meant to, she replied. She was born from pain, but she carries light. That's rare. Outside, the light burst again, this time sharper, faster. The ship's hull cracked. John and Ilari ran. They reached the clearing just in time to see the ship slam into the ground with a soundless thud. No fire. No smoke. Just silence. The metal glowed red, then cooled. The glass hatch opened with a hiss. Lena floated down slowly, her eyes wide now, calm but tired. Her feet touched the ground. The snow melted in a circle around her. John stepped forward. Lena, she looked at him. They screamed, she said softly. Inside the ship, they were afraid. Did they hurt you? She shook her head. They couldn't, not this time. Ilari rushed to her, hugging her tight. Tears fell down her cheeks. I thought I lost you, she whispered. Lena closed her eyes. You didn't. Later they returned to the cabin. The sky remained strangely bright, like the stars themselves had moved closer. Everything felt charged. Lena sat quietly by the fire, holding a warm cup of water. Her fingers no longer glowed. But the air around her still felt warm. John stared at the remains of the ship. He checked it himself. Empty. No bodies. No tech. Just dust. What did she do to them? He asked. Ilari sat beside him. She didn't kill them. She unmade them. He turned to her. What does that mean? She reached into their minds and showed them what they fear most, a world where they don't win. That's terrifying, he muttered. She's a mirror, Ilari said. Not a weapon, John rubbed his eyes. Then why are they still coming? You said there would be more. They don't stop. Once a seeker fails, they send the collectors. And what do? They erase. John stood and paced. We have to move. There's nowhere safe. There's always somewhere, John said. We make it? That night, Lena had another dream. John sat beside her bed, just watching. The child's face was peaceful, but her fingers moved in the air like she was drawing on glass. He saw shapes, stars, doors, eyes, flickering in faint light above her hands. Then she spoke, still asleep. They're already here. John leaned closer. Where? In the trees. He ran outside. Gun ready. Snow was falling again. Soft, slow, innocent, but something wasn't right. The trees were moving, not the branches, the trunks. They swayed, groaned, breathed. Figures stepped out from behind them, tall, hooded, faces hidden. Not metal. Not machines. John froze. They weren't like the seekers or the ships. These were older, different. Ilari ran out behind him and gasped. No, John raised his gun. Who are they? They're not with the harvesters, Ilari whispered. They're older than them. Then what do they want? The central figure stepped forward. Slowly, it lowered its hood. It was human. Or at least it had been. Eyes like glass, skin half metal. But something soft remained. I came for the child, the figure said. Not to take her, to warn her. John didn't lower his gun. Start talking, the figure nodded. She's not the only one. There are more. Like her, hidden, lost. Waiting, where? In dreams, it said, in visions. Her light woke the forest, and we felt it. John looked confused. You live here? We sleep. Until we are called? Lena walked outside barefoot, eyes wide. Calm as ever, she looked at the strange figure and said, You're one of the broken stars. The figure knelt down. You remember? Lena nodded. I saw you fall? Ilari stepped forward, breath caught in her throat. What are you? We are the warning before the storm, the figure said. The real harvesters are coming. John clenched his fists. So what now? The figure looked at him. Now, you choose run, hide, or train the child to survive. And with that, the figures melted back into the trees, leaving no tracks behind. The forest returned to silence. Inside, Lena crawled back into bed. John sat beside her, gripping his shotgun tight. He looked at Ilari. Looks like we're not. Done, Ilari nodded. Not even close. Outside, the trees watched. And far beyond the sky, something bigger had started to move. John had always believed in two things. Don't trust too easy. And when the fight comes to your door, finish it, now. As he stared out the cabin window at the dark sky above, he knew the real war was finally here. And it wasn't just about Lena anymore. It was about what she represented. The hooded visitors from the forest hadn't returned. But the air still carried weight, like a storm holding its breath. Lena hadn't spoken since the encounter. She just stared at the fire, her little fingers tracing invisible shapes in the air, light flickering from her skin with every movement. She's changing, Ilari whispered. Faster than expected. Can she control it? John asked. No. But she's trying. He looked at Lena and nodded to himself. Then it's time we stop hiding. That morning, John pulled open the rusted trapdoor behind the cabin's old pantry, a place even Ilari hadn't seen yet. Below was a hidden concrete room. Cold, dusty, and filled with steel boxes and cases. Ilari followed him down slowly. Her eyes scanned the space. What is this place? My fallback, John said. After the war, I never wanted to feel unprepared again. Inside were old military crates, dented, locked, heavy. He cracked one open. Inside, EMP mines, thermal charges, 2 combat rifles, and 1 black case labeled Burn Code Protocol 17. Ilari stared at it. That's harvester tech. Stolen during a blackout operation in orbit, John said. Cost 5 lives just to touch it. I buried it with the rest. In case they came back. She placed her hand on the case. It could overload them. I'm counting on it. Training began that same afternoon. Not with weapons. With discipline. Lena stood on the frozen ground, eyes closed while John circled her slowly. When you feel it, don't push. Don't run, just breathe. Lena took a breath. Her fingers glowed. The snow around her feet melted. That's it, John said. Don't control the power, control yourself. Ilari watched from a distance. Arms crossed, eyes wide. She had never seen a human talk to her daughter like that, like she was capable, not dangerous. Something deep inside her began to hope. By nightfall, they had cleared the area around the cabin, set traps in all directions, and installed motion detectors from John's storage. Lena practiced until she couldn't stand. Ilari cooked quietly, often watching John when he wasn't looking. What made you stay? She finally asked as they sat alone near the fire. He didn't answer right. Away, I saw my reflection in her, he said. A child caught in someone else's war. You were a child soldier? John nodded. I survived because someone gave me a weapon. I want her to survive because someone gave her a choice. Ilari looked at him differently after that. Not as a human. But as family. That midnight, the forest shook. No warning. No light. Just a ripple across the ground, like the earth. Exhaled. The motion sensors lit up. Red, Flashing. John was already at the window. Rifle in hand, Ilari grabbed Lena and pulled her close. Outside, something massive moved between the trees. Not, just a pipe collector. That wasn't built like the Seekers. This was alive. Bone and steel, 8 feet tall. Arms like blades. Its face had no eyes, just a mouth that clicked open and closed like a machine trying to breathe. John had never seen anything like it. They send one first, Ilari said, voice trembling, to test resistance. Then let's give them something to fear. The collector stepped into the clearing. It sniffed the air, not with a nose, but with sensors in its skin. It walked straight toward the cabin, and then, boom, one of John's proximity mines exploded, launching the creature into a tree, but it stood again, fast. Ilari, go now. John shouted. She grabbed Lena and rushed toward the back door. The second mine hit louder. Metal flew. The collector's leg was gone, but it crawled forward anyway. John faced it head-on in the snow. He fired 3 rounds. Center mass, no effect. The creature lunged. John dropped the rifle, pulled out the burn code case, and slammed it into the ground. Opened it. A glowing cube pulsed inside. He grabbed it barehanded and smashed it into the creature's chest. The collector screamed. No voice. Just frequency, and then cracked open from the inside, glowing red as the cube melted into its body. It collapsed in seconds. Smoking, hissing, John fell back, breathing hard. His hand was burned, but he didn't let go of the empty case. Ilari. And Lena ran back to him. Lena hugged him tight. He didn't say anything. He just looked at the destroyed thing in the snow. That was just one, Ilari said. I know. Lena looked up at him, her voice calm. They'll send more. John nodded. Let them. That night, they didn't sleep. They prepared, because now, they weren't just surviving, they were fighting back. The smoke from the destroyed collector still drifted through the trees. It had been 2 days since the attack. 2 days of silence. 2. Quiet. John knew this wasn't peace. It was pause. And sometimes, pauses were deadlier than the storm itself. Lena sat near the fire, hands resting in her lap, eyes watching the flames like they were speaking to her. They might have been. She was different. Now, not just glowing, but aware, stronger, calmer. Almost older, Ilari, John said, breaking the silence. She's changing, fast, her mother nodded. She's accelerating. Her light is adapting. It's choosing how to grow. John stared out the window. They'll be back soon, yes, he looked at her. So we need to move, Ilari shook her head. You still think it's about running? No, John said. I think it's about choosing where we take our stand. That night, Lena spoke without opening her eyes. They're watching, from orbit. 5 ships. John didn't ask how she knew. He just sat beside her and asked, Can they hear you too? She nodded slowly. Yes, but they're afraid to come. Closer. Why? Because of you? John frowned. Me? You're different from them. They don't understand why a human would fight for something that isn't his. You confuse them. He gave a dry chuckle. Good. Lena opened her eyes. They want to offer you a deal. He looked at her, cautious. What kind of deal? If you give me to them, they'll leave Earth alone, forever. Silence. Then John stood, walked outside, and stood in the snow. He didn't want Lena to see the rage on his face. Ilari found him moments later. She told you. John didn't turn around. They think I'd trade her for silence. She's their prize, Ilari said. She holds a key none of them have, light born of pain, shaped by kindness. They don't deserve her. Ilari stepped closer. Then you have to decide something. What's that? Are you her protector, or her father now? The question hit him harder than the cold wind. They stayed one more night at the cabin. One last fire. One last quiet dinner. Then Lena asked to speak with John alone. He sat beside her bed as she held the same old sketchbook in her lap. She had drawn something new, a door, floating in space. Light pouring out. What's this? He asked. A place I saw, she said. Not a planet, not a ship, just ... peace, it called to me. John stared at the drawing. You want to go? There? No, but someday I might need to. Why? Because even light can burn the ones it loves if it stays too long. He took a long breath. Not if you learn to control it. She looked up at him. Will you help me? That's when he knew his answer. The next morning, the sky cracked open. No sound. Just light, sharp lines cutting across the clouds as 5 harvester ships descended silently. Like shadows made of glass, they didn't land, they hovered. Waiting. John stood in the snow, shotgun on his back. But he didn't raise it. He stood between them and the cabin. A message came through, not with words, but directly into his mind. Give her to us. Peace will follow, refuse and earth burns. He didn't flinch. Instead, he replied in the same silent channel, You want a child who glows? Come and get her. But I don't think she's yours anymore. Behind him, the door opened. Lena walked out, not afraid, not glowing, just calm. She held Larry's hand in one, and John's in the other. Together, the 3 of them stood in the snow, facing the sky. And then Lena lifted her hand. A soft wave of light rose from her palm. Not blinding, not violent, just true, and something unexpected happened. The ships hesitated. One of them cracked. Not from attack. From inside, something awakened within. A chain reaction began. Not of explosions, but of doubt. The signal they shared collapsed. One by one, they turned away. Retreating. Not defeated, but changed. The sky cleared. The world exhaled, and the forest was still again. Back in the cabin, John sat by the fireplace, staring at the map spread across the table. We can't stay here, he said. They'll regroup, return, Ilari agreed. There are whispers of others like her. Across the stars, she felt them. She could find them, John nodded. Then we make a choice. Lena came to the table. She pointed to a part of the map where there was no land. Just ocean, there, she said. We leave from there. Leave? John asked. To find the others, Lena said. To help them before it's too late. John looked at her, a little girl with light in her hands and a galaxy in her heart. He nodded slowly. Then let's go. They packed light, left the cabin behind. Nothing but ashes in the fireplace and shadows on the wall. John didn't turn back. He had made his choice, not to run. Not to hide, but to walk beside them, wherever. The road led, even if it led into the stars.